and welcome to another SciFirst MovieTalk episode. So, in this episode, I will be discussing the 1944 Disney classic, and forgive the pronunciation of the title and of probably quite a lot of the actors and characters, but the Three Cabelleros, which, looking at online translations, seem to mean the Three Gentlemen. Please do correct me if you think I'm wrong. It is their 7th such classic and watched as part of Family Film Night. So, following on from the success of their last film, 1942's Saludos Amigos, Disney set about to create another anthology-style film. Again, based around Latin America, and in fact, although this film is not a sequel to Saludos Amigos, it actually serves as a continuation, so to speak, kind of with the central story being centred around Donald Duck, as voiced by Clarence Nash, receiving a number of presents for his birthday from his friends he made on his trip to South America during the movie Saludos Amigos, namely Jose Carioca, as voiced by Jose Oliveira, the samba-loving, cigar-smoking parrot from Brazil, and Panchito Pistols, as voiced by Joaquin Garre, a rooster from Mexico. Although I don't believe we actually met that specific character in Saludos Amigos. Anyway, I already knew that before watching this film, that like Saludos Amigos, it wasn't technically a film as one would know it to be, with a main kind of story overall. I was expecting this to be made up of separate stories with a tentative common thread. So I was ready for that. However, that isn't quite what I actually got. Donald is the common thread in this movie. Gone is the continuous narrative style that we had in Saludos Amigos. Instead, this one is driven in the main by the characters themselves. There is some narration for Donald's early segments, as provided by Frank Graham, and for the first 2 stories. The first, as narrated by Sterling Holloway, is about a penguin, Pablo, a heat bug, if you like, who can't live without his furnace, having a strong dislike for the freezing cold, who longs for life in the sun, and will stop at nothing to find himself a quiet little island where he can bask in the heat all day, and undertakes a number of misguided attempts to accomplish his mission. The second story is narrated by Fred Shields and tells the tale of a young boy and a flying donkey who he befriends and uses to enter and win a horse race. Both tales are fairly charming, but basically fairly routine stuff. Neither really stand out, but have at least a couple of fun moments that do offer a couple of giggles. If anything, the second may have offered an explanation for the fate of the donkeys out Pinocchio. No, just kidding. I'm sure it didn't. Now, this is where things kind of started to turn for me. On Wikipedia, I'll cite the source, at least the Wikipedia source. It states that there were 7 segments in this movie. So, okay, I agree with their description, but the rest of the movie doesn't actually follow the separate story format. Instead, bringing kind of all 3 characters, Donald, Jose, and Panchito, together in a number of mixed kind of live action and animated musical numbers as they travel through the various areas of Latin America, including Bahia, Mexico City, is one I definitely can't pronounce, Patsacurio, Veracruz, and Acapulco. The segments are less distinguished at that point, and to be honest, were far less coherent from here on in, with the film kind of basically merging from one segment to the next, with a number of really being fairly bewildering and surreal, to say the least. So please, don't get me wrong, the dance sequences with the live action dancers in the movie were actually very good. I am in no way making commentary to the culture kind of depicted in the movie at all. Merely its execution. The dance sequences, however, did kind of seem to go on far too long and did kind of saturate the second half of the film. The film was actually one of the very first to actually mix live action with animation, and so to say that the artistry exhibited here in this respect is actually amazing. The animation is extremely clear and smooth when put up against the live action sequences, and it really did integrate very well. You can certainly tell that this is where the main emphasis on production was actually placed. The human side of things does seem awkward at times, and this is very, very noticeable and a little off-putting. Well, it was for me. But as this was the very first of its kind, I do have to appreciate that, of course, that these actors, they had never before acted against something that wasn't actually there. And of course, it's something that we take for granted in today's films. It is, of course, become something of a mandatory acting element to work with CGI characters. But back in 1944, I can appreciate what a novelty this would have actually have been. And on that kind of technical point, these sequences, they are outstanding from that point of view. It is, however, simply the way that the overall film has been put together that is lacking. No attention was drawn to offering anything of a coherent story, or even a number of stories that kind of would grab and keep attention. The film certainly feels like it's a tale of two cities, or halves, as it kind of were. The first sets up the premise for a series of stories to be told, but then kind of loses its way over the course of the second. For me, I did actually enjoy the way that its predecessor was put together for what it was. It had better stories and more involvement from classic Disney characters, which made up for the lesser stories which had kind of been presented. Now, okay, this film does include Donald, but to be fair, he's just not up to his usual standard in this one. Albeit, there was an hilarious scene when he's turned into a sound wave, which was just pure joy to see. And the new characters, which do feature heavily, for me, they just don't hold the same sway, and really do struggle to hold the film together. They were just not that funny, in this movie specifically. For me, it could have benefited from perhaps using other kind of more well-established Disney characters along the way, along with introducing Jose once again and featuring Panchito, basically to add some needed balance and some familiarity, I think, in this one. In fact, elements of the second half just kind of seem surreal at times. Perhaps I completely missed the point, but at one instance, the three Caballeros ended up being turned into peeping Toms. They were kind of flying around on this magic carpet above a beach, which consisted of nothing but scantily, well, for the 1940s, scantily clad women, all bouncing around and swooning after Donald. That scene just kind of left me scratching my head in disbelief, to be quite fair. In fact, throughout the second half, pretty much each of the sequences involved Donald being infatuated with and chasing after the women of that particular segment. Just didn't sit quite right with me. I felt quite awkward at times watching it, if I'm honest, to be quite fair. Overall, for me, this was a fairly mediocre entry into the Disney Classics series, where even Donald wasn't up to his usual standard of entertainment. To be honest, this one quickly lost our son's attention, and mine, to be fair. I did kind of find myself checking the remaining time more than once throughout the movie, and that is something I do very rarely. So I think that kind of just speaks volumes for the movie itself. The film started with a bit of promise, but lost itself in the second half, which never really went anywhere and ended up making it very difficult to follow. You could have probably cut about 40 minutes or so, and have ended up with a fairly decent long cartoon, and that may not have been too bad. So, that brings me to the end of this episode. Thank you very much for watching. I do hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please leave a like. Please do hit that subscribe button for more movie reviews, more trailer reactions, and other movie-related episodes. But most of all, like always, we have loved having you, and we would love to see you back again at SciFirst MovieTalk. But most of that, thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.